IVM.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into a show about crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
Here's your smart fact of the day. All right, here we go. August 1859 saw what is recognized as the world's first advertising slogan appearing in print. Beecham pills worth a guinea a box. Okay, now this probably was the world's first tagline. Welcome to Smarter With Sid today. And we are going to look at, are taglines still relevant in today's day and age? Now, obviously, we've heard of very memorable taglines around, Nike, right? Just do it. You had Think Different from Apple and so many different ones that just stick out. You can visualize the hoarding. You can see it being said by other people very proudly when they, are referring to, say, a Nike or something like that. And taglines have been so popular that they have moved beyond just the advertising industry and the marketing folk to people across all segments and categories. So when you say the word tagline, people understand it. The stuff that comes below the logo, right? That is what talks a little bit more about what the brand is. And so therefore, there are a couple of camps as usual when we ask the question, are taglines still relevant? First of all, why should we ask that question, right? Is what the first camp would say. I mean, taglines still fulfill a very important role. It's a quick and effective way to get across a brand message in just a few words, serves as a brand's promise to its consumer, helps differentiate, helps build customer loyalty, etc., etc., etc. But then, what does the other camp say? Taglines typically last just a year or two. For small businesses and all, shelf life might even be smaller. And maybe in today's day and age, taglines are an outdated tool and they're usually come across as, forced or they're trying too hard. So these are the two camps trying to figure out with this episode where the truth is and what actually is the future for the tagline. In general, before I start, I want to make a couple of points. The first point that I'd like to make is let's keep the marketing folk out of the way. And I'm speaking as a marketing person. When we talk of taglines and start praising them and how integral they are to the whole communication process or advertising or marketing process and how much I think we all should take a step back and try to figure it out from the ever-evolving consumer's perspective or the consumer's eyes. In today's fast-moving, technological, different kind of digital world, taglines, do they have that impact? Now, if I look at how a consumer is actually looking at information, consumers skipping ads, consumers looking at different kinds of memes, consumers looking at different kinds of new electronic media, consumers listening to stuff, consumers consuming more visual stuff, so many different ways, gaming there, metaverse coming in and all of that. So many different things, right? So is a tagline still that relevant in this sort of situation or this sort of context is the first question that comes to mind. The second thing that I'd like to say, first one was about the marketing folk. Let's forget what the marketing folk want to say. Let's focus on the end consumer. The second thing I want to say is small businesses and entrepreneurs, right? Even before I begin, I think they spend a huge amount of time being influenced by not just marketing folk, but by big brands and try to emulate them, try to, model themselves and their companies and their brands. And so therefore, they spend an inordinately large amount of time trying to develop the perfect logo, the perfect, tagline, etc., etc. And most of the times, I think it is extremely difficult to come up with a tagline that suits them. And eventually I have seen 9 times out of 10, and I'm making a bold statement here, it ends up being a bit of a waste of time. So taglines are not necessarily, I would recommend something that any small business or entrepreneur should spend a huge amount of time on, unless and until it is just to stroke their own ego. Now, this becomes extremely crucial and touchy as a subject, both to marketing folk as well as to the small time businesses and entrepreneurs, because this comes very close to their craft, the marketing guy's craft, because they are in the craft of creating that perfect communication. And small businesses and entrepreneurs, they are in the business of their business, and so therefore it's their passion. And so therefore, if we can describe it pithily and beautifully, it has the potential to make a world of a difference. But to all those folks, I would again urge you to go back to the ever-evolving consumer. Does a consumer give a rat's ass about the tagline? Now, let's look at the problem that taglines actually have in this world that I'm continuously describing. First of all, taglines generally tend to have a very short shelf life. They last, I think, probably a year or two. Small businesses, it is even smaller. The shelf life is even smaller. But the reason is that the taglines that are relevant today are no longer relevant tomorrow because of the speed at which things are changing. And therefore, it's quite possible that whenever you're trying to fit in and make something permanent, through a tagline, you're trying to make something permanent, you just have to look at Nike and how it actually looked at from just do it to just don't do it is what they had to go to, because they focused on the Black Lives Matter movement and they kind of played around with their famed tagline, and it served them well because they were relevant to the evolving customer. They realized that the customer would appreciate a brand that actually has the temerity to play with its tagline to make sure that a larger point is communicated, right? So shorter shelf life is a big problem for a tagline. The second is all the responsibility of what the brand is trying to communicate. Don't put it on your tagline. There's so much of pressure. I have to put everything in these 3 or 4 or 5 words. And therefore, the taglines sometimes become too long and sometimes they become too broad and limiting. And when it is like that, of course, the customer is going to be completely either confused or overwhelmed with what you're saying and is going to ignore you. And when you're also creating a tagline, you perhaps are also creating that clutter. And in a world which is so chock-a-block of people trying to, give you as much information as possible, just imagine the clutter that your tagline is creating for your brand's logo and your design. And here's my last point. A tagline may not be required in the context of your brand name. Now, if your brand name is very descriptive for whatever it does, then, you might not need another tagline to describe what your descriptive brand is doing in any case. And if your brand name is very abstract, perhaps your tagline can help. But most of the times, if you have a logo that is descriptive as to what you're doing or whatever, it's evoking the right images, maybe a tagline may not be necessary. So if it is an abstract sort of name that your brand has got, metaverse, Google, sort of thing, maybe you might need a tagline. But look at these people, right? Look at these companies, may not necessarily do better with a tagline. Now, this is my third and final point against the usage of taglines in a blind fashion. I'm not saying that every business should do without a tagline, but maybe businesses should focus and brands should focus on messaging. Now, messaging becomes extremely crucial because a tagline will change and the way in which it is perceived in the context that it is observed in. And therefore, maybe what we need to have is the key message that needs to come out maybe on your blog, or the key message that needs to come out through your Instagram, or the key message that needs to come out through your YouTube channel, the key message that needs to come out through your hoarding. And they might be very different from each other from a messaging perspective, but the communication that they're doing and the impact that they're having on the consumer's mind is going to be probably in a similar vein. Also, in a day and age which is full of memes and so many different things that directly impact the subconscious, a tagline kind of tries to draw attention at a conscious level. And at a conscious level, things work in a limited fashion. At a subconscious level, maybe if you're communicating through let's say a very strong visual signature like a meme or like just your pure logo, maybe a lot of businesses would do better by doing this from that perspective and asking themselves the hard question, do we really need a tagline? Right? Well, so much to say about such a little tagline, but trust me, it's very, very important. And I think that you probably know where I stand as far as taglines are concerned. I do think that they are necessary for some businesses, but not for all businesses. And we should not be developing taglines unnecessarily. I hope you liked this episode of Smarter with Sid. Many more to come from where this came from. And hey, if you like me, I'm the Traveling Professor on Instagram and on LinkedIn. Do connect with me over there. Idea is to get 1% smarter with this podcast of mine. And see you next time.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On this very special 150th episode of Advertising is Dead, Varun's in conversation with Pooja Dhingra, pastry chef, podcaster, and founder of Love 15 Patisserie. Do check out this episode for a look at her journey as a creator and entrepreneur. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam is joined by Ravi Ravulaparthi, CEO and co-founder of Kapita FinTech. They discuss the problems when it comes to ESOPs, i.e. employee stock options. Facebook announced their rebranding and its ambitions on becoming a metaverse company. On Simplified, Tony, Chuck, and the others talk about what this means. On All Things Policy, Ruturaj Gowaikar and Aditya Parikh discuss the European Union's Arctic strategy. And on Say No to Drama, tune into episode Moodiness, My Birthright, as Chetna talks about how you can be as moody as you want to be. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do follow us on YouTube. We have a number of different channels. You can find them on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, where you'll be able to take a look at all of the channels we have. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much. You make this possible.
A wise man once said, traveling, it makes you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller.
Well, listen to such travel stories and experiences exploring India on the Musafir Stories with us, Saif and Faiza.
Catch us on the IVM website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.